What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Today I want to talk about a new understanding. I've been called to present this information to questioning Christians who, think that there's something deeper, and know that there's something more to the story of the traditional interpretation of the story of Jesus. And this new understanding that I'm talking about is that the story of Jesus is actually a metaphor for the human soul. This is the part of us that includes the infinite, eternal part of us. And this is important because without it, we don't have any self-worth. This is the source of our self-worth. In the traditional version of Christianity, self-worth is pretty much non-existent. Our value is dependent on believing in Jesus. And the unconscious belief is that Jesus and God are outside of us. And unfortunately, that's not the case, because God is infinite, and you can't be separate from what's infinite, pretty much. So there's a misunderstanding that, Jesus came to die for our sins. And this is one of many different ways to interpret the scriptures. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying there's more to the story. There's a higher meaning. The idea that Jesus came to die for our sins is basically one person's opinion about what the story of Jesus means. Now, if you do this experiment and just read the four Gospels by themselves without reading any of the other books after them, you don't come away with the message that Jesus came to die for our sins. This message was promoted by the Apostle Paul. And those books that were put after the four Gospels are put there so that the church could influence what they thought what was important about the story of Jesus, to make us remember what they thought was important about the story of Jesus. So if you find out for yourself what the story of Jesus means, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to come back after reading those four Gospels just by themselves and say Jesus came to die for our sins. That's not the interpretation that we get from it. You get something different. Maybe we don't know what the meaning is, but that's not it. And the way we find truth is by finding out what's false. So if you know that's not it, you know it's got to be something else. So the new understanding is that the soul represents Jesus in the Gospels. Born pure of a virgin, miraculous, rejected and buried, yet it still lives. And again, this is important because without the soul, there's no self-worth. And self-worth is a topic that's relegated to the background as not important, but ultimately it's the cause of many of humanity's problems since the beginning of time. Also, the soul is important because without it, you can't experience God while you're alive. There's a waiting until we're dead to get to heaven and to know God and to feel our own salvation. And that's a huge mistake, for this is the God of the living, not of the dead, as Jesus so eloquently put it. So yeah, this new understanding is not something that, we can simply understand on an intellectual level. It starts on the mental plane, but it ultimately has to, we have to take a step further and have to actually feel it, experience it, live it, and actualize it in our lives. That's what self-realization is. We have to understand it to such a profound level that it overtakes us, that it becomes our number one thing in our life. And we have to be willing pretty much to die for it. We have to face that instinct to survive, face the instinct to make money, and to depend on something other than God. It's very scary, it's terrorizing, but ultimately, I think it'll be easier for people if they know this information. That's kind of why I'm here saying this. This calling that I have to give this word to people and to help people understand. And this new understanding is designed to help you get further in your practice, and to, on the passage to the soul, to make it a little easier for the next person. That's why my story is here, and I've been called to do this. And I know it's going to help someone somewhere. Keep the faith and keep trying, and just understand that, this story of Jesus, this traditional version that Jesus came to die for our sins, it doesn't work. You could try as much as you want, but ultimately, the harder you try, the more worthless you're going to feel. So this new understanding is very important, and I've been called to tell this to people and just to consider it in your own experience. And I'm not saying, that you have to believe what I'm saying. I'm trying to say you need to go find out for yourself. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Peace.